Good day everybody and welcome back to the flight deck. Today we're going to take a look at flying the Boeing 247D 1930s airliner, one of the very first that was a all-metal single wing monoplane. So we're going to be flying today from Linz down to Graz in Austria. Thanks for coming along, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up a few tricks and figure out how to fly this airplane. So why don't you come on board with me and we will get her set up and ready to go. Well, welcome aboard the flight deck everybody. As you can see, this is an old airplane designed in 1930-31, flew basically right up to the war, and I believe the last flying one was still flying up to about 5 years ago, so they've been around for quite a while. So there's a few things to know about this aircraft before we start. One is there's no autopilot, and two, there's no modern navigation system on it. So it flew by the old flying the beam method of radio navigation. This is before NDBs and VORs. So it is a bit of a handful, and I still haven't quite figured out the nav system. So when I get that down, I may do a separate video on that. But for now, we're going to be doing basically VFR flying from here in Linz down to Graz, which is about 90 miles away. So we're going to get the aircraft ready to go. It's fairly simple, but you do have to take care with it. One of the neat things it has is there's no EFB, but we do have this clipboard. And here it is. So if we go to the first page. Basically it tells you what the airplane is and what we have here in the way of sections. The next page is our characteristics, gives you some basic information, weights, balances. It also gives you engine settings for climb, cruise, and takeoff, and what our rough fuel consumption should be. The next page is our loadout. You can use this for setting up some of the stuff outside, such as the loading platform, the cargo doors, and the stairs. I'll just jump outside. As you can see, we got some of the platforms and baggage carts and stuff all sitting outside ready to go. This is our weight and balance. As you click on the spots, you can add passengers, fuel, oil, and cargo. And then once you're all done, you can click Make It So, and they will start loading up. These are your crew guys. We have our ramp agents and our aircraft mechanic, who is going to be flying with us, actually. He is an employee that sits in the back. So as they do this, the baggage gets loaded in. If we swing around to the front, yeah, you see they've already put the baggage in the front and they've closed the door. And they're going to come around and start loading the bags in the back as well. And then they'll close the door up there when all that is done. And passengers are boarding, the stairs are being removed. And this just lets you know that there's stuff going on around the airplane, and it does it in real time. So they're just securing the cabin. Luggage is being loaded in the back. Again, if we take a look, you can see the bags going in. And when that is all done, they'll be pulling the cart away. It's going to take him a little bit of time. He's got 4 more bags to go. While he's doing that, we do have the wheel chocks in place, and we'll be ready to start. That's the engine starting page. Then we have this one for maintenance. We can remove the cowls, as you saw at the beginning of the video. There's some miscellaneous stuff here about the battery cover and the gear fairings. Down here are simulation settings, engine malfunctions, electrical failures, and realistic engine starts. I have them all turned off. I've been watching some videos, and this is a very fragile airplane. You can easily have the engine shut down on you. I've seen engine fires. The fuses are all modeled. If we look down here, this is the main fuse thing, and you will have fuses break and you got to replace them. At the moment, with no autopilot, it's a very hands-on airplane to fly, so I think we'll just stick with that the easier way. Oil system, you can change your oil depending on the temperatures, and you do need to pay attention to that. If we look right now, we're not even at 60 degrees, and when we get higher, the temperature is going to drop. So if we look here at our temperature range, we probably want to be in the 20 to 90 SA30, which is what's in it now. So we're good there. So we can leave the oil, and the oil is full. Radio equipment, this is a little bit about how to navigate and or squawk if you're going to be on VATSIM, and then just the credits at the end. So if we come over here, back to the engine start page, we'll be good for that when we're ready to go. So we got the window open on this side so we can hear what's going on. There's a few issues with the airplane. One of the big ones I noticed is there's no engine cranking sound over on this engine here on the right. So hopefully they'll do an update and fix that. And again, she seems to be a little bit fragile. But we're going to go through our basic startup for the airplane because everything should be in the off position, and that should be off. Yeah, okay. So this is the way you're going to find the airplane. You've got your throttles for the left and right engine. You have your propeller controls for the left and right engine, and you have your mixture, left and right engines. Down here as well, you've got your oil cooler flaps, which you've got to use for the oil. You've got your carb heat and your parking brake. This is a trim. You've got friction locks for both the props, the throttle, the props, the mixture, and the cowl flaps, oil cooler flaps. Wobble pump over here, which we'll get to. Fueling, starting down here. All your engine instruments are here. There is nothing overhead except the radio, which we're not going to use. And you got your wet compass. So to get things going, I'm going to take the stick out on this side. We'll make sure we have our parking brake on. We're going to check our fuel gauges. Now the fuel gauges are manual, and they're going to read 0 until you pull this out and let go. And it gives a little bit of pressure into the tank, and it'll show us. So we're sitting at 130 gallons on the left tank. This is the right tank, but the right tank is split into two. There's a main tank and an auxiliary. They're both full. So you can see the main tank is reading about 70 gallons. If we switch to auxiliary, we check the gauge there. We're about 70 gallons there as well. So everything is good on both sides. We'll put that back to the main. That is good. So our fuel is good in both tanks. So what we're going to do is we're going to push in the master. That gives us electrical power. Quick way to check that. Turn this light on. If that lights up, the map light, you have electrical power. Over here on the magnetos, we're going to push in that button. That turns the magnetos on, or at least allows the current to flow. These are our gauges. The top one is our fuel directional gauge. So it's left engine, right engine, or both. We want, obviously, to feed both engines. If you had an engine fire, you'd shut off the fuel to one of the engines. Down below is the fuel tanks. You have left tank, right tank, and auxiliary tank. We're going to start engines on the left tank, so we'll put that over to the left. For the people in the back, this is our lights. It's a 4-way switch. You can turn the smoking light on. You can turn the belt light on. They can be both off, which they are right now, or both on. We're going to turn the smoking light on. And if we go into the back, oops, clicking buttons here. If we go into the back and look forward, you can see the no smoking light is on. If we do this again, we come up here. If we go to belts only, we look forward, you can see fasten seat belts are on, but we're going to go to both. So everybody's no smoking and seat belts are fastened. So the first thing we're going to do is prime the engines to get them up and running. So we're going to make sure the main valve is turned on, which it is. We're going to take the fuel selector, the engine selector, and turn it to left engine. So it's pointing to the left. That's where we want it. And we're going to prime the engine, or prime the fuel. So we pull out. It's not too bad out, so we're going to do 3 shots of prime. There we go. And it is locked in place. That is all set. The next thing we got to do is introduce pressure into the fuel system. Our fuel pressure gauges are up here. So we're going to grab the wobble pump. and manually put pressure in. We'll have to do this a few times as we go through this process. There we go. And we're going to bring the clipboard down quickly. And we're just going to make sure everything is done here. We're going to take the wheel chocks out as we get ready to go. And we're almost there for the flywheel. So the engine's primed. We're all set. So the next thing we want to do is go full rich on the mixture. Full forward, or about 10% on the 10 to 15% on the throttle. I'm doing the wrong one. We're starting engine 1. We're going to go full forward on the prop and about 10% on the throttle. So that is good. We're going to come over here. We're going to set our mags to both so that they'll be ready to go. We're going to wobble pump again. And then we are going to have our crew start the engine. So to manual start, there's no electric starter on it. They have to hand crank a flywheel, get the flywheel going, and then once that weight is spinning, they mesh it to the engine, which cranks it around, and we should get ignition. So we'll tell him to wind up the flywheel. He's now going to get a ladder, which he's going to put up against the engine. He's then going to insert a crank handle. There's the ladder. And once the crank handle is inserted, he's going to rotate that. That's going to start cranking the flywheel. As it's winding up, and it is a bit loud, as it's winding up, you can hear the tone increasing. When the tone becomes level, that's when you're going to engage. You'll also get a green flywheel mesh button there. We want fuel pressure though, so we're going to crank up the fuel pressure and then engage. Alright, good start on the left engine. We're going to bring the RPMs up just below 1,000. Close that because it is a little bit noisy. So we're going to put the clipboard away. We're going to bring this over to the right engine now. We're still on. We're going to unscrew the prime, and 1, 2, 3. We'll give it 4. There's 4 shots of prime. We'll pump up the pressure on that side. So mixture's going to go full rich. Propeller's going to go fully forward up to about 10% on the throttle. You can see on the right engine the fuel pressure is coming down, so we'll give it another couple cranks. Mags to both. We'll get them to bring the ladder over. Okay, keep pumping, keep that pressure up. There's the ladder. There he is cranking. Unfortunately, you can't hear the tone, but you can watch for the green light to come on there. Keep the fuel pressure and meshing the flywheel. Good start. So while the engines warm up, and you do have to let them warm up, let's go over the instrument panel. So your manifold pressure gauge, which is over here, only shows one engine at a time. This is your selector, right engine or left engine. Again, we've got our right side tanks selector, left and right. This is our undercarriage up and down, so it's showing down. Ambient outside air temperature, about 58.5 degrees, 59 degrees. This is a multi-gauge for various temperature readings from engine cylinders to carb. So that's cylinder 1, cylinder 4 on that side. There's cylinder 4, cylinder 1 on the right side. There are various different things you can select. Down here you've got your fuel tanks. In the center is your main flight instrument. So there's your wet compass up there. Directional gyro. This thing does drift incredibly, so we're going to have to set it. So it is 1 notch over. It's kind of got a very gross dial on it, so it's hard to get exactly right, but it's about there. We'll call it. This is your artificial horizon. It's driven by a vacuum pump on the left or right engine. The aircraft electrical generator is driven by a vacuum pump or a generator on the left engine. So just remember that. But this is very simple. It's just got a line and a turn indicator, and that's pretty much it. Airspeed here, a turn and slip coordinator, turn and bank coordinator, vertical feet per minute, up and down, altitude, and we'll set the altitude now. So there we are. Altitude is set almost 1,000 feet. Manifold pressure, as mentioned. Good operating areas in the white. Don't want to go into the red. We got a clock. And moving over, we have our fuel pressure for the engines, our oil temperatures, our oil pressures, and our RPMs down here. We have our lights. Can remove that at the moment. We have our lights. Engine feather, this is our volume. If we had to use the radio to contact the tower at the airport, this is what we use. It's not for navigation. And down here we have our electrical lights. You can see we're drawing power from the batteries right now because the engine's not running at a high speed. That's fine, it'll get fixed. Courtesy lights, dome lights, cabin lights, pitot heater, engine instruments. This is for nighttime flying. We have a compass light, and then nav lights for outside. There's no beacons or anything like that. As mentioned before, this is our fuse box for everything except the radio, and this is the fuse box for the radio. Down here you got the radio master switch. Now before the beam type of radios, they used this, which was a... come on, give me my mouse back. Here. They used crystal radio. These are the switches for that, but it's no longer in place and doesn't matter. They don't do anything. This is our de-ice. Elevator flap controls, which are trim tabs. Landing lights on and off, and our warning, and then there's panel lights. You can turn them up. And I already went over what's down here. That's about it, really. You've got a little aileron trim here. Air vents, if you want to cool it down if it's really hot in the summer. But the airplane's up and running. It sounds pretty good. Again, if you have failures on, these are very delicate, and I find it easy to have issues with the engines. So we're going to be taking off today on runway 26. So we're going to be taxiing out to 26, which is not too far. We're basically going to run down here, and we'll be taking off from the intersection. So I think we're pretty much ready to go. What I am going to do, the flaps are closed at the moment to bring up the temperature. They seem to read low, so the pressure seems down. The temperature is coming up and is looking nice. So I'm going to open these up at the moment, now that they've come up and the engines are nice and warm. We'll release the parking brake. And you can see we're instantly rolling. We don't want to bring the engines down much past about 800 RPM because the aircraft will, you could lose the engines, they'll stall out on you. So we're going to leave them up running. We're going to use differential braking and our tail wheel steering and normal brakes to control the aircraft. You can hear all the noises as we go. And of course, if it was windy and you were concerned with it nosing forward, you'd go full back on the stick and just use that to keep the tail pinned to the ground. So we're going to be going up kind of high. We are going across the mountains that are out there. Well, we're going to make a right-hand turn, though, as we climb out. And we'll circle around the airport and then head southwards. Just look out. Everything is good. I'm not sure if it's a steerable tail wheel or if it's free castering. There we go. Put the parking brake on until we're ready to go. So everything is pretty much set. So if we look at our performance, it says for takeoff we want to go to 36 inches. So if we look at the gauge here, 36 inches is that red line. So we want to bring it up to just about the red line. And then the props are going to be at 2200 RPM. We're fully forward. Once we're climbing out, we're going to come back to 32 inches and 2100 RPM. So that is the plan for the takeoff. So 36 in full, and then 32 and 2100. So I think we're pretty much ready to go. She's not too bad on the rollout either for the issue with tailplane aircraft. The other thing, we can keep her pinned back, and she'll take off from a 3-point attitude. So we're going to add some back pressure. I'm going to release the parking brakes, and we're going to bring up the power. I'm just watching that manifold pressure. Bringing her up to just about the red line and just holding it there. There we go. Here we got the back pressure in, keeping that tail down. And you can see she just lifted off on her own. So positive rate, we'll put the gear up. You see the needle moving, and the carriage is now up. Hear the hydraulics winding down. So as we're climbing out, we're going to come back to 32 inches. They move a lot. You don't need a lot of throttle. And we're going to bring the propeller RPMs back to 21. It's about there. It's just a very little movement. And we're just going to keep monitoring that as we climb out. And we can trim. You don't need a lot of trim. See that trim handle turning? I'm going to try to maintain about 100 knots for the climb. There we go. We'll make our turn and we'll loop around the airport. Let's see if we get the trimmed a little bit more. It's kind of like the DC-6. You got to do a little bit and let it figure out where it wants to settle in, and do a little bit more. We're going to climb up to about 15,000 feet as well. There's the airport. So we're about 110 knots. We'll add a little bit more back trim. Keep bringing it down. And again, these are carbureted engines, so as you climb, the pressure is going to go down. So we're going to keep constantly bringing that climb pressure, the throttles forward. There's 32 inches. Props won't change, but the manifold pressure will as we get higher. So we just got to watch that and keep edging them forward as we go. So the town is off to our left now. And again, we're heading for 15,000 feet so we can get over the mountains. We're going to be taking a heading of about 150 or so. See the airspeed dropping, so we're gonna come forward a little bit. We want to keep that up about 100. Keep that turn going. Again, there's no autopilot, so this is all hands on. And of course, we're going to be watching our temperatures and our pressures. See the oil temperature is dropping, so we're going to come down and we're going to close the shutters. Bring that temperature up. Alright, we'll roll her level. We're just going to keep her climbing now. She's not a fast airplane. She's going to cruise at about 140-ish in that area. So it is something we've got to be aware of and keep an eye on. Get that nose down a little bit more. She's a little slow. And if you find her that she's leaning to one side, you can always use the aileron trim. Power's coming down, so we'll just add a little bit more power. Get it up to 32 inches again. So definitely got a little bit of a lean. You can see how much that moved with that little bit I added in. So we'll see where she sits now. Fine adjustments. Definitely going into that turn, so let's take it the other way. No. She's kind of seeking a little bit. But we're going to keep climbing out, and I will come back to you once we're up to cruise. So we were struggling a little bit as we got up towards 10,000 feet. So we're going to level here. We should be able to make it over all the mountain tops here. We'll just keep it about 10,000 feet. It's going to be bouncing up and down as we go because we're not going to be able to hold it very well. That's fine. She still wants to drift to the left on me. See what I can do to fix that. But we're in cruise, so 27 to 29 inches and 2,000 RPM. So we're at 2,000 RPM. We're at about 29 inches. And we're just going to cruise along. So now that we're here, what we're going to do is switch fuel tanks. So if we look at our left tank, the one we used for startup and took off, you can see she's come down a little bit. But for the cruise portion, we'll switch over to our right tank. So we're going to switch over to the right tank. And again, if we check our right main, we're full, so that should do us for the cruise. If we look at our stats for our fuel consumption, we're at 2,000 RPM, 31 gallons an hour. We've got 70 gallons, so we're good for an hour on that side. And we're just going to cruise along. We're going to watch our altitude. You can see we're slowly descending, so again, we'll just trim slightly. Our airspeed seems to be a little bit slow, but that's where she is. So the way it works that I've been able to figure out is, unlike a VOR where it sends out the signals for all the radials and you can figure out what radial you're on and then track inbound or outbound from the VOR on the radial, there's only 4 directions off of each radio station for the beam system. And they align with airways. So unlike being able to say I want to go over here and figure out how to go straight there, the beam system just aligns you to the the airway in the sky, and then you fly that airway. And if you look at the charts, again, and I'll see if I can figure it out good enough to do a video on it. If you look at the charts, everything is set out in airways, and basically your directions are all how to get onto the beam and fly the heading that lays out the airway. So it's all a little complicated, but it's pretty good. So we're just in cruise here, about 90 knots. We're at 2,000 RPM, as I mentioned, although that's dropped a little bit, so we'll just push them up slightly. There we go. We're cruising over the mountains. So we'll pick up with you on the descent when we're on the other side. There's not much to do here except just monitor everything and fly our course. So we're just about ready to begin our descent. One thing I forgot to mention is you're going to have to lean the engines out. You will lose a lot of performance if you don't do that. So I find running at about 50% on the lean gives me all the power. As you can see, we're doing about 165 or so right now. In a slight climb. We got up to 14,000 feet, but we've got 13,000 feet to lose. We're heading down to 11 feet down at Graz, which is kind of off over this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the power back and we'll start a descent. No, I don't want to start a climb. Start a descent. There we go. Might take a bit. As we start to head down, there's the town. We're going to come in, we're going to do a left, basically a left base, or a left pattern coming in on the downwind. We're landing on runway, I think it's 34. So we're descending down, so we can do our checks. We want to make sure our fuel's good. So we're still on the right tank, and if we do a check, yeah, we're starting to use some of the fuel. That's not bad. We'll switch over to the left tank for landing. We're descending at about 1,000 feet per minute. We're just going to watch the terrain as we come down. So there's the town right there. So we're going to cut this way across and then do our circuit and come in and around. Descending a little bit quickly. So bring a little bit more power in. We don't want to be going down at 2,000 feet per minute. 1,000 will do about 150. I don't know if that's knots or miles per hour. Miles per hour. Well, the other thing we should do is make sure the pitot heat is on. Something I forgot to do. Again, if I didn't explain it, this is the fire extinguisher. You select right engine, left engine, pull it out, and it gushes the foam into the engine. Just hope you don't have two, because I think you can do two shots on one engine, but you're kind of out of luck at that point. Pull the power a little bit more. So landing speed is going to be about 100. We're going to approach at about 100. We'll probably touch down at about 80. 3-pointed in. So 11,000 feet to go. I want to keep that 1,000. Again, no autopilot, so this is a lot of manual playing around and trying to get it doing what we want it to do. I was playing with the trim here, couldn't quite figure out how to get the trim. I just had to keep doing manual little adjustments as we go. We're just keeping an eye on everything, so you can see our air temperature got down to just below freezing. So this is where you would look at your, if we were at 60 degrees and going up 10,000 feet, 2 degrees a 1,000 we could drop us down to 40 degrees, so that, you know, that's the range for your oil. You can't have it too thick, you can have it too cold. And obviously here we have an issue with our oil temperatures out of whack, and that's kind of a recognized thing where there's temperatures are not quite right. So we're 11,000 feet, and we gotta keep pushing down. We'll be extending out pretty far to get ourselves down to altitude. And it is beautiful out here flying through the Alps. And it is kind of noisy. The air currents, the bumps, the turbulence will do everything it can to keep us up and down and bouncing around. So very hands-on flying in this airplane. Haven't flown it at night yet. It'll be interesting to see. Again, we got our light switches here. And again, de-icing here if we were to need it. So I don't really think this is an IFR airplane. You could fly through weather and stuff in it, in the cruise, but you're definitely not going to be doing IFR approaches. You're going to want clearance below the clouds for landing. So the airport is right there. You can see it. 10,000 feet, so we're just going to turn along and we'll keep descending. We'll set ourselves up for a descending downwind. And we'll try to 3-point it when we come in. We're doing about 150 miles per hour and about 1,000 feet per minute. It's 9,000 feet, so we will turn the landing lights on. If we go outside, you can see they are located in the wings. Pushing for that 1,000 feet per minute. At least until we're down to within a couple thousand feet of where we want to be. Three runways here. 2 outer ones are grass, and the middle one is a long paved runway, so that's the one we're going for. Be a little bit of a struggle to get her down. You constantly got to be watching. an eye on that airport. It's 8,000 feet, so 7,000 to go. Nice day here. Winds are going to be from the left as we land. So light westerly winds. Another point, if you ever have to use the manual gear extension, the undercarriage lever actually is the 3-position, up, down, and a neutral. If you're using, like I am on my throttle quadrant, a gear selector, it will just go to the up and down positions. It'll skip the neutral position. So if you're doing failures and you have a gear failure and you got to use the manual extension, then you're going to have to manually put the gear lever, which is right here, into the center neutral position. I believe this is the manual extension for the gear over there. Still got some altitude to lose, but we're going a little bit slower than we normally would, so it doesn't. We got some time still. We got about 5,000 feet to go. Airport is now just off our wing. So we get to 3,000 feet, we'll make our turn onto base. We'll make it before that, but we don't want to head down to the southern mountains here. There's 5,000 feet, we'll start to turn. Nice view of the engine, a little bit of the ground. We want to watch our max speed. We don't want to go over 190. It's 4,000 feet. Circling back towards the town and the airport. We can still see it there. So there's a little acronym you can use when landing a complex aircraft like this called GUMP. It stands for gear, undercarriage, mixture, and props. So gear is gear down, undercarriage is locked, mixture is full rich, props fully forward. That's what you do on final. This is kind of last run through to make sure everything is good. All right, airport's at our 10 o'clock. 3,500 feet. Looking good. There she is. We'll start our turn towards the airfield. 2,000 feet now. We're going to bring our descent rate down to about 1,000. Airfield's coming into sight. Bring the power back. Start slowing this thing down. There are no flaps. That's low pressure. Full on the mixture, full on the props. Speed's coming back. That's a gear warning actually for low power. I'm going to bring it down to just above. Speed's coming back. Coming down to 110. We're a little high if you're looking at the PAPI lights. Gear down. There we go. Okay. Coming in. It does take time to get that gear down. Speed coming back. Power, we're 2 whites, 2 reds. So we'll bring the power up. A little low. You can hear the buffeting and everything, so we want to keep that speed at about 100. Me looking around outside, not paying attention. So we're going to have to drag it. We're lined up. Back on the power. Looking down the runway. Easing it back, keeping the stick back, easing the power, pulling it back. And we're down. Kept the tail off a little bit there at the end just to help slow us down. Again, there's no flaps, no auto brakes, and no reverse. A little bit of smoke coming off the engines. Again, we want to keep those RPMs up at about 1,000, or else she will quit out on us. Kind of missed our turn here. So we'll bring the engines back to about 1,000. And now that we're on the ground, we'll open up the oil flaps. Help keep the engines from overheating now that there's no airflow over them. It's a noisy airplane. That's all right. They were. Yeah, welcome to Graz. All right, set the parking brake. Again, the engines will run them at about 1,000 RPM. And on these radial engines, it helps pull the oil out of everywhere, gets it into the sumps, gets it lubricated. First engine we'll cut is the right engine, mixture to 0. We also bring the prop all the way back. And the throttles will bring the prop all the way back. Weird sound at the end there. I don't know what that is, but it should not be sounding like that. All right, so that is done. We'll turn off the pitot heat and the nav lights. We'll turn off the landing lights. The mags can come off. That's all good. We can turn the signs off in the back, and we can get our crew out, and they can chock the wheels, passenger cells, get the baggage carts. There we go. So they will be out there and unloading. So that is basically how to fly the Boeing 247D. I'm sure I missed stuff, but it will get you from point A to point B. It is a fun airplane to fly. You got to be hands-on. A lot to remember. If you find yourself low on power at L2, check your mixture. Make sure you're down about 50%, and you should be good. Well, that's going to do it for this time. We hope to see you again on the next one, and we'll be flying this thing on live streams shortly. So enjoy, and we will see you again soon. Bye for now.